Conversation with Africa. It is time. It is about that time where we gather for a Pan-African affair, and we're quite excited that we're bringing to you today as a Wednesday. You'll take note that every fortnight Wednesdays we bring to you a Pan-African affair from Gaborone, Botswana. I'm saying that because we have a number of development partners who tune in to the show from across the region, Africans in the diaspora. So we're quite happy to be having our friends tuned in. It is a Wednesday. What's the date today, Oscar? What's the date? It's the 8th.
I still remember writing 8th. So
it's the 8th of September. Yes, and the voice that you're hearing is of Oscar Chiwira from Zimbabwe, residing in Botswana. You'll take note that the Pan-African affair that we have every Wednesdays, we always try and bring to you a tone of Pan-Africanism. So you'll take note that even the presenters represent different countries. We have Abiodun Oni from Nigeria. Is my friend there? Abiodun? Is he there? All right. We'll get in touch with Abiodun. So stay tuned for this. Then when we come back, we take off.
All the hits, all the time. Gibbs FM.
Broadcasting live from Gaborone, Botswana. It is Conversation with Africa. Africa Rising, AFCFTA. My name is Neo Tlhaselo from Botswana. I'm sailing along with my co-hosts, and in studio I'm with
Oscar Chiwira. I'll welcome you all those from SADC and East Africa to be part of the conversation as we focus on intra-Africa trade, unpacking the African Continental Free Trade Area with African and global development partners. Right. Conversation with Africa Rising, AFCFTA.
Right, and all the way from Nigeria, I'm quite happy that Oni is with us today. Abiodun Oni from Nigeria. Welcome, co-host.
You are right about that. My name is Abiodun Oni. I'm dialing you from West Africa. That's Nigeria, country of Nigeria. I'm proud to be here and more excited once again. Guys, it's about the 9th or the 10th episode, and it's still exciting to be conversation with Africa at Rising, AFCFTA. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. I mean, we're always excited to be, running this show and getting to have a dialogue with very strong Pan-Africanists and, having to gather around very pertinent issues regarding Africa Rising.
Oni, how are you doing that far?
I'm doing so well. It's been a while.
Oh, it's nice to be having you.
I guess it will be an exciting show today again, as always.
True that.
Right. Strengthening SMME'S for productivity and empowerment through AFCFTA opportunities. It is what we're unpacking today. Take note that CWA, Conversation with Africa, that is what stands for CWA, that it is structured in a very unique manner where we have 3 presenters and expert guests who come into the show to actually unpack these issues. And it is actually a very unique show where we get audience throughout Africa, especially audience who are, stakeholders towards the intra-Africa trade and AFCFTA. And let me just, also just recognize our AFCFTA Secretariat at Accra, Ghana, and our colleagues there who are always tuned in because they are actually always very attentive to the input made by, stakeholders and development partners towards these discussions. So please do be a part of this discussion. 14962, that is your SMS line. 3956962, that is when you're local. If you're outside Botswana, plus 267 395 6962, or the WhatsApp line plus 267 395 6962. Our focus today is on SMEs, and we are very excited and privileged today to have a guest expert who is an economist and a business development partner, Neo Mahube, right here from Botswana, in Botswana. Just to share a bit of her profile, it is quite long, and let me just encourage each and every one of you to get into Conversation with Africa Facebook page, where we have actually shared her entire biography there. But just to sum it up, we would say that, Neo Mahube has been an economist and business development expert, over 20 years of work in the trade and business development environment, rendering business development services to enterprises of different levels, being SMEs, large enterprises, and mega enterprises. She has served in quite a number of organizations, and maybe just to highlight a few, she has been in the banking sector. She has also contributed within her, former position as a director at Ministry of Investment, Botswana's Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. And, she has contributed, speaking to the AFCFTA directly. She has stood as a focal point for trade development issues relating to AFCFTA and other trade agreements. So she's quite she's quite broad and diverse in her service. So we're gonna get right into this as we welcome her. Welcome, Nell.
Welcome. And good morning to the listeners across Africa. And I'm excited as usual to be here with CWA and conversing on issues that can take this country and this continent to another level.
Thank you so much. In actual fact, it's a good afternoon, because we also have to recognize our Africans in the diaspora at China. I know that our embassy, Botswana's embassy of China, also do share actually quite a number of our adverts. So I know that it is an afternoon where they are. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to just maybe a bit of housekeeping at 12:30. The second segment, it is brought to you by Absa Bank, and we will continue until the top of the hour at 1300 in Central Africa, 1400 in East Africa, and 1200 at West Africa. So, opening this discussion, Oscar, before I throw it to Oni, we'll have the opportunity to hit now with the first question. SMEs are the backbone of many developed economies.
Yes.
And they are obviously quite important towards the contribution of employment, output growth, trade, exposition. They account for Africa's apparently about 80% of employment and 50% of its GDP. And it is quite important that today we actually focus on them. Sure. What would you like to say in synopsis as we give to Oni to actually strike with the first question?
Thank you so much, Neo. Let me also welcome Neo Mahube. I was actually looking forward to be having you in the studio, and I was rehearsing how to be with the two Neos.
Which is actually challenging, Oscar.
Yeah, I was rehearsing how to be with the two Neos in the studio. So I'm actually not very happy about not having the Neo in the studio. Welcome, Neo Mahube.
Yes, thank you very, very much. And let me share with you why I didn't come to the studio. I'm practicing digitization 100%.
Wow.
Many that work can be done from anywhere. That is why I didn't come. It's one of those things that SMME'S in Africa will have to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
In Africa.
No, it's now okay. I really do understand and appreciate that. And I think this is something that we all need to actually to go through that pathway.
Yeah.
Neo.
Yeah.
And Oni, if you look at our today's topic, we are looking at strengthening SMME'S for productivity and empowerment through AFCFTA opportunities. You would find that in this topic, I always want to dissect the topics.
Yeah.
We are talking about the small to medium enterprises. We are talking about a key component, which is the productivity within the territorial boundaries of doing business in SMME'S. And productivity and empowerment are very, very important attributes that will actually propel significant and reasonable contribution to economic growth of any nation.
Yeah.
Now, we are now saying, what are the opportunities that AFCFTA would actually bring in, so that at least the small to medium enterprises can ride on those opportunities and contribute significantly. I appreciate actually what you have said. Yes, true. About 80% of businesses in Africa are categorized as small to medium enterprises. And you'd find that intrinsic in that, we have got about 85% are in the informal sector.
Yeah.
So across the board, from 40 to 50%, as you have said, that is the contribution of small to medium enterprises to gross domestic product, or loosely speaking, we can simply say to economic activities. So it is actually a very, very important aspect. If we look, at our current intra-African trade of 16%, we are envisaging that we can actually grow that to 81% by 2035. So, given the important role of the small to medium enterprises, it is actually a catalyst. We can actually say it is a catalyst for sustainable development, which is the agenda of the AFCFTA. That is the sustainability of the development process.
Right.
So it is very, very important topic that we're discussing today.
Right. Thank you very much for that very, very, very comprehensive synopsis that will usher us into this very particular discussion. Oni, over to you as you shoot with your first question to Neo.
Yeah, the two Neos. Okay, so Oscar, you had the challenge of Neos. I had my challenge was the intimidating profile of the Neo Mahube. I was wondering how I'm going to be able to measure up with that kind of intimidating profile.
Yes,
but I think I'm going to give it a shot. How are you, Neo Mahube? Welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thank you very much. It's great to connect with you. Far as you are, it really shows that indeed we're rising up in Africa to be real African.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask that you raise your voice a bit high so that you're more audible.
Okay. Am I more audible now?
Yes, now you're more audible.
It's very better.
Emma.
You're closer to me, actually.
Right.
So I was going to say that we have to first establish on the premise that the SMMEs to be strengthened to take advantage of FCA opportunities. They have to be viable and sustainable within with survival and growth potential locally and or regionally. Because if you have an SMME that doesn't know what it's doing or is not strong within its locality or regionally, then how can it connect with the rest of the African countries? So that leads me to my question. I went through a study published by the International Trade Center. It says that SMMEs represent 90% of businesses and employs about 60% of workers in Africa. But yet the sector is still largely informal, and we all know quite well that informality and poorly structured ease of doing business and businesses and perceived risk, it impedes investment largely. And honestly, you know that if we don't have investment in SMMEs, there's no way they're going to really survive to the point of having productivity or growth. What do you say, man, to these challenges that we have with the SMMEs?
No, thank you very much. You let me know if I can just go straight first to just share the background.
Yes, go ahead now. Yes,
maybe just to the listeners, just to put the perspective.
Yes.
I love talking about SMMEs because over 60% of my time I've worked in my career life. For the 21 years I've worked with SMMEs directly, grassroots SMMEs, seeing them grow. So this is what my passion is about, seeing companies grow. And now we're going to where we want to see companies growing through the African trade network.
Right.
Yes. Like you said, now we fondly call each other namesake. When we are two, okay, Oscar?
When we are two.
I'm listening.
So SMMEs are drivers of economic growth and long-term sustainability for many markets across the globe, not only Africa.
Yeah.
And that contribution cannot be underestimated. So now I'll just come down to Africa, our continent. Africa has an estimated population of 1.3 billion people with an estimated growth rate of 2% in most countries. And this is a very huge and impressive African population. And what one can ask themselves is, what population is this of the population of SMMEs? And according to research, like Oli just said, more than 80 to 90% of Africa's businesses are SMMEs. That is a huge population. It means that only 20 or 10% is the large businesses. Meaning that further research shows that more than 80% in Africa, SMMEs, they provide the employment. So almost everybody, except 20%, who are employed by government mostly, and very few private sector companies actually giving employment. The SMMEs are the ones that are dominating. And within that, in Africa, the gross domestic product, the GDP contribution is over 50%. So basically, the dependence of Africa's growth and economies is on SMMEs. So with that estimated population of people, there's definitely a great opportunity for the growth and expansion of African SMMEs into the African trade market through the AFCFTA. And thanks to our mother, African Union, who fought brilliantly about bringing the biggest trading bloc in the world, not in Africa, in the world.
Yes,
where there are 54 countries. And with the main objective of increasing intra-continental Africa trade, where Oni just mentioned it, we're only trading like 16%. But with the AFCFTA aspirations is to grow it in 2022, by 2022 at least to 51% or above 50%, and in 2035 to more than 80%. And now, we need to sit down. Are the African SMMEs ready to get into that? What do we need to do to enhance their productivity and to empower them so that they grow? We know that they're the creators of the largest employment. So I will just zoom down and just go to the multiple barriers that are limiting the capacity of our SMMEs to compete and access the African markets. At the top of the list is capital or finance, inadequate access to finance and credit. And mostly this would be as a result of high interest rates or need for collateral. Another one would be inability to attract talent and to be innovative and to be tech savvy. The reason why I did this digitally is to show that it is possible to trade across Africa without going anywhere. I'm right here next to Oni, and he's in Nigeria. And we are trading information right now. So it is possible.
Exactly.
Poor infrastructure and utilities, which is a role of governments to make sure that they support SMMEs there and to enhance the production capacity. The lack of innovation, the technology and digital knowledge gap, and the lack of marketing. And this is where now we're talking about enhancing them to network and all those things. So indeed, you can see that from the statistics that I just shared, there is a great need for support towards SMMEs from both governments and the private sector.
Right.
And I'll emphasize it, both governments and the private sector. Governments are responsible for policy, infrastructure, and supportive things. The private sector should lead industrialization.
Right. While you're still there, Neo, let me just take this time to engage those who would have just tuned in at this hour. It's 12:32 right now, and we're speaking to strengthening SMMEs for productivity and empowerment through AFCFTA opportunities. And we take this time to actually invite you into studio so that you also be a part of this discussion. If you are an industry player, please do call in and let us know your views as to how SMEs, how you believe that SMEs should be strengthened and empowered through the AFCFTA opportunities. Take note that at this hour, we sail on with Absa Bank Botswana. Take note that the Conversation with Africa Zone 2 is proudly brought to you by Absa Bank Botswana. We will be back just after this. Take note that you are on Conversation with Africa. We are having a Pan-African affair.
Zone 2 Conversation with Africa. Africanacity. Powered by Absa Bank Botswana.
At ABSA, we believe in helping you find a way to get things done. We call this Africanacity. Conversation with Africa is proudly powered by ABSA.
Conversation with Africa Zone 2, proudly brought to you by Absa Bank Botswana, a very proud sponsor of us, Africanacity. And we're very proud of the Africanacity. Absa Bank Botswana teaches us that it is possible that Africans can rise to the occasion, and we need to believe in ourselves. And thanks to Absa Bank Botswana, the Africanacity is meant to say, Africans, do believe in yourself. Let us participate in the Africa Rising narrative. There is a caller, Oscar. Let me just get this. Conversation with Africa, you're live.
Hello?
Hello. Please reduce your radio.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
I'm on air, live on air.
Erra, you are live on air.
Yes, I would like for you to clarify something. You said GD, what does that mean? It's only that
GDP.
I didn't start the conversation from the beginning. So you keep on saying G, what, I don't know what you're saying. So can you explain that so that we could probably keep in with the information? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I think our African brother here is speaking to abbreviations. And apparently in Africa, we do quite a lot of abbreviating and, and not really expand on that. Okay, let me just get rid of this. Okay, thank you. Thanks to our programs manager, Sims, big ups to you. What can we do without you? All right, GDP. Yes. Now, in your content, you did mention GDP, so I think we need to elaborate on that. Can you do that for us?
Yes, the gross domestic product.
Yeah.
That is the contribution that the small, medium, and micro enterprises contribute towards the development of the economies. In the simplest term ever, the GDP is what measures the economy. Is it doing well or is it not doing well? For us to be able to be going to school, to be getting electricity and all those things, the higher the gross domestic product, the higher that, the better the economy it is.
Right.
So if SMMEs are contributing so high, over 50% in average terms, it means that they are contributing a huge amount. So if you want the economies to grow, you need to grow the SMMEs. If you want the SMMEs to grow, then you need to support them to be productive and to be competitive and to be able to reach the African market.
Right. Thank you for that. Let me give it to Oscar and then I chip in. Take note that we are speaking to strengthening SMEs for productivity and empowerment through AFCFTA opportunities. So I'll just like to say to my co-host and our guest expert that towards the topic, please let's ensure that we do not leave this conversation hanging. Let's ensure that we really break down all the issues here. Oscar did speak to issues of productivity. Neo did mention also empowerment and also Oni. Let's also speak to also the strengthening of SMEs. You'll take note that, when our content chairman, who's actually the one who assisted us with this topic, the strengthening of SMEs here is put into the context that there are SMEs that are actually in place, Oscar.
Yes.
And so how do we build, how do we enlarge them? That is from that perspective, because the meaning of the word strengthening means to make something stronger or more effective or increasing the ability. So we need to speak to that through the SME, through the productivity, and then empowerment through AFCFTA, which means we have to look into the contents of AFCFTA, which are meant to actually empower SMEs. So if we can balance those two components so that we don't leave any side of it hanging. Oscar?
Yes. Thank you, Neo. Actually, I was about to take, if we talk of Absa Bank, Africanacity.
Yeah.
Always when I'm just by those circles and then you see this guy is selling cold drinks.
Yeah.
You actually think of the very robust, interesting tagline of Absa Bank, which is the Africanacity.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Yes. Now, the last segment, when you were actually making your contribution, you spoke heavily or highly on industrialization. If we look at the seventh objective of AFCFTA, it talks about industrial development through diversification and the regional value chain development, and it does not leave out agricultural development and food security. Now, if we are to check on the level at which most African countries are at, you'd agree with me that we are at the infants level of the industrialization process. Some, if actually there are industrialization policies recently drafted or ratified. Now, within that terrain and with that backdrop or with that understanding, you would agree with me that the bigger countries may benefit more from selling industrial goods to a wider market.
Yeah.
And the small countries, and mainly making reference to small to medium enterprises, will benefit more by feeding the regional value chain. So now I would want you to unpack this issue of feeding into the regional value chain. What do we mean? And what will be the role of the small to medium enterprises?
Yes. Thank you very, very much. One of the bedrock of AFCFTA to see the growth of trade. That is the main thing, trade. Trade, just to break it down to the listener, trade means goods are being produced or services are being done. But right now we're talking about goods being produced and then being exported to another country. And these goods are made by companies. When there are many, they become an industry. Meaning that what AFCFTA wants to do is to grow the industry base, creating many SMMEs that will produce many goods and then trade across Africa. And when it comes to now the industrialization, there's what we call integration or regional integration, where we see one company or many companies producing to feed another company in another country. And those would be the raw materials. I'll give an example. We see coffee being made in countries outside Africa. If you want, we don't grow coffee here. We don't grow coffee beans in Botswana. But we can produce coffee by buying the raw materials from the SMMEs who are growing coffee beans in another country. That is what industrialization means. It means across industries and across SMMEs, where there is that. But for that to happen, now where the empowerment of AFCFTA comes in is, AFCFTA in very simple terms is saying, for you in Uganda or in Kenya or in Nigeria to be able to bring that coffee beans to Southern Africa, it's difficult. That is where there's 16% trade. It's very difficult. So I'm going to remove all the roadblocks for you. I'm going to make sure that it is easy for you to transport. I will build the roads, hence the Kazungula Bridge.
Infrastructure.
I will make sure that we will have one border post where there's no delay because your goods are needed in another country. So that is what we call trade facilitation now, where it is easy to sell across. And that for the SMMEs to industrialize Africa, there is that empowerment through the SCFTA and the government now to build in the infrastructure. Now, for the productivity side, now we're saying SMMEs, as governments, we are building the infrastructure. Now you need to produce. What do they need to produce? For every company to produce, they need finance, they need the skills, they need many other things. And one of the most inhibiting things that is happening is the financing gap, of which research shows that the financing gap in Africa is around 136 billion. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot. And therefore, access to finance is a challenge, and it is hindering the growth of SMEs. For them to be productive, they need that finance, they need that innovation, they need that technology, and they also need to easily access the market. You know, when I want to know where can I sell, I just I just easily get the information, who can I sell to and how can I sell there. So this is why today I'm very happy to share, to have seen that it has been shared, and you have shared that today's the Conversation with Africa is being sponsored by a financier promoting Africanicity.
Yeah.
This is indeed what true Africanicity is. Not only to preach, but to live it.
Yes.
Exactly. And mentioning,
Yes.
Yeah, and in addition to that, now I'd just like to urge all listeners to get into Absa Bank Facebook page and website, especially the SMMEs, in order to, get in touch with Absa Bank. And there are actually products which are actually tailored for businesses. So I'd like to urge development partners to get into Absa Bank Botswana for more information.
So I'm trying to break that down to show what we mean by productivity of SMMEs and enhancing it, and what do we mean by empowerment through AFCFTA. Other areas that the AFCFTA, of course, through the African Union, is issues, just aligning how we're doing things. They say that the AFCFTA is a free trade agreement. Free trade means that it is easy to do trade. It is free. There are no barriers. The cost of buying a raw material is cheaper. That is what the AFCFTA is bringing. The roadblocks that you are seeing is they are being removed. It's easy for you to export and to import things because the documentation that you need and the transit of a good from one area to another is going to be made very, very easy. A classic example. Yeah,
while you're still there now, let me just engage you on this and also throw into to Oni. We might run out of questions because you are covering quite a number of areas. The AFCFTA, like you rightfully said, it is formed with an intention of boosting, intra-Africa trade, that freeness. I think that is the most simplistic way to put it. I like how you have simplified it. So it is meant to boost intra-Africa trade, to accelerate growth and facilitate investment on the continent. So I'm going to get in from a perspective of the angle of empowerment, empowering SMEs through the AFCFTA opportunities, because I think it is very important that we also just enlighten on the opportunities that are available that will put the empowerment into effect. So the AFCFTA speaks to the reduction of trade barriers, simplifying the trade process and all of that. So now you have participated at the Botswana's Ministry of Trade. So I want you to speak to, I think in Botswana's perspective, the bottlenecks that you're speaking to, what needs to be removed in order for the AFCFTA opportunities that have been well pronounced within the agreement to come into effect. We have lost somebody. Have we lost Neo? Okay. Oni, are you there? Okay, we have lost somebody. Apologies for that. Hello, good day. Now, are you there? Oni, are you there? All right, we have lost both of our guests and co-host. Oscar, would you like to make additions while we try and get a hold of our guests?
Yes, no. I was actually following what our guest was mainly presenting.
Yeah.
Basically, if what she was presenting, you would find that she is actually saying, produce what Africans need.
Yeah.
We have got a footprint as Africa. And you find that if you check across small to medium enterprises across Africa, there is an element of homogeneity in terms of the products that the small to medium enterprises mainly focus on.
Yeah.
They mainly focus on issues of primary level in terms of production. So what actually she was making reference to is we need then now to check across the value chain to see what are the areas that we can actually close in as small to medium enterprises to be impactful in terms of our relevance in the economy. Actually, if she comes back, I thought I would also want to make reference to. She made reference to challenges to small to medium enterprises.
Yeah.
And she made reference to issues like production capacity, the issues of productivity issues, infrastructure, and funding constraints. And a lot of emphasis was mainly on the funding constraints. But I would also want to unpack more. Yes, we are within the framework of AFCFTA, but we are still having some challenges in terms of the regulatory issues.
Yeah.
So that is a big one, which would actually want to unpack or to share.
Yeah. Actually, that is what I was touching to, especially considering the fact that she has participated at ministry level. Now, you are there?
Yes, I'm there.
Right. Let me check our co-host. Oni, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let me just apologize to our listeners to that short technical glitch. Trade facilitation now, as we take it shortly, then we give it to Oni for the next question.
Yes, you were asking. Having led a department that was representing Botswana in terms of the negotiations for the AFCFTA, I was happy to be a part and to be an alternate negotiator at some point for the AFCFTA. Some of the things that we were just talking about, that they don't seem, one would not see that they're affecting the business, but they are. It's free movement of persons.
Yes.
One of those things. You'd have a company wanting to do trade, say in Botswana, or a company having an employee wanting to do trade. It takes a long time for visas to be released. It takes a lot of paperwork for that to be done. Those are regulatory issues that we are talking about.
Yes.
And the CFTA is here to say, let us reduce all those bureaucracies that are there. Let us ease all the protocols, facilitate movement of business people. Right now, recently in Botswana, if I could just mention, we have, you can get your visa at the port of entry, You can apply and still get it there. In the long, some time back in other countries, you needed to wait for the visa, and sometimes it's even, you can't even get it. So by free trade, we also mean later when everything is okay for people to be moving free. Europe, let's take Europe for instance. For you to go to France from Germany, you don't need anything. You need yourself, your money, your transport. And that is where the AFCFTA is going to say we should do what we call sector market integration.
Right.
Yes.
Everything that is affecting the business, let us make it to empower the productivity of the businesses.
Right. While we're still there, let me throw it to Oni, then we wrap up.
Okay. Thank you, Neil. I have listened carefully to all that we've been saying, and I heard you, Neil, in the studio. We were talking that we should actually continue to talk about the strengthening and empowerment of SMEs.
Yes.
I still continue to argue strongly that these SMEs must have
Hello, Oni?
It looks like we've lost him.
Have we lost Oni? Hello, Oni? But his line looks still on here. Oni, are you there? We have got a caller. Conversation with Africa, you're live?
That's me, Oni.
All right. Should we continue? Should we continue with you, or should we call you back?
Okay, call me back.
All right. All right, we will call Oni back. Well, in the meantime, now I want you to speak to issues of information dissemination. How do we empower on AFCFTA when information dissemination and education towards the instrument of AFCFTA is still lagging behind? I think the reason why we many of our stakeholders really appreciate Conversation with Africa is that we're really pushing on the empowerment and dissemination and education of the AFCFTA. So I need us to speak to how do we further train and educate SMEs on information in the quest to empower them and to strengthen them towards them tapping into the AFCFTA opportunities.
Yes. No, thank you very much. For every agreement that is signed, there is what now comes to the implementation and the rolling out of the implementation of that. And countries, an agreement is at like the AFCFTA, it's at an African level. But when you come now to the country, you need to now bring it down to the people, to the men and women that is in the street. And there are many aspects in a trade agreement. Trade information is one of the critical things that comes when it comes to the rolling out of this and making sure that economies share and empower the different sectors of the economy, including the business sectors, where there is a need for governments to create interconnected centers. Right now in Botswana, we talk about a one government where whatever that you need, you should be seeing it in one center. And there's one aspect also, it's called single window type of information dissemination and engagement with the different players, including the business people. This comes from a mother trade facilitation agreement from World Bank. It is brought down to the African level. It now needs to come down to the country level, where trade information and empowerment of the SMMEs now has to come in.
Just a second, we will connect with Oni and then we wrap up. We're left with exactly 2 minutes. Conversation with Africa, we're live and we're wrapping up in a minute. It seems as if we've been having a bit of technical glitches. Let me just hand over to Oni to wrap up for us as I thank our guest expert Neo. Unfortunately, we did not have enough time to unpack all of it. Oni, over to you as you summarize everything for us.
Well, thank you, Neo in the studio and Neo online. It's been a very interesting show. Unfortunately, like you said, we didn't really have enough time to wrap up.
Oni, are you saying Neo the studio or Neo in the studio?
Yeah, I would have loved to speak more on how much investment we need to do in our SMEs, because it's actually a key to Africa's most pressing challenges. Investment in SMEs means more jobs.
Of course.
And we have a gap of about 23.5% in investment and trading. And I read somewhere we need about 37% in the continent development targets on our GDP. We will need to do more in attracting foreign direct investment, because there's a lot of gap in investment that we need to put in the SMEs. And I'm sure if we have enough investment, our SMEs will be strengthened and empowered to take on the continental challenge. Then I'd like to thank AFCFTA for its sponsorship of this program. It's been really nice and interesting. Africana City. I like the definition of what Africana City is all about.
Yeah.
Being distinctly African and ability to always find ways to get things done.
Thank you so much. Africana City. You have wrapped it up very beautifully for us, Oni. If you just tuned in and you want to hear the entire show, please get into Conversation with Africa. The podcast is there. You'll hear all of the shows that you have missed. They are there. Or if you want to continue contributing, we will be back. Remember that we are here Wednesdays fortnight. It is a good afternoon from us, and thank you to our guest expert, Neo Mahube, our very own BW's economist and business expert. So if you want to know more about Oscar's profile and Oni's profile and myself, get into Conversation with Africa Facebook page. All the bios for the presenters are in there. It's a good afternoon.